Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Art of Storytelling webinar with us at Revenue Growth Agency. This is kind of the final instalment, I guess, in this series of webinars talking about using storytelling for new customer acquisition. So we're tying everything together today to talk a little bit more about how to execute everything that we've talked about over the past couple of months. I'm once again joined by our founder and director, Andy, and joining us today is also our director of client growth strategy, David. So they're going to be having a bit more of a conversation around the different strategies and what we do to put this kind of strategy in place for our clients. Once again, just a little bit of housekeeping. So this recording plus all of the slides will be sent out to any of the registrants, whether you're kind of watching this live or not. You'll all get a copy of this, and as always, if you do have any questions or any comments, pop them in the comments. We'll either get back to you offline if we've not managed to have enough time to go through it today, or if we've got a little bit of time, we'll answer them at the end of this session. So yeah, let us know of any questions, and either way, we'll come back to you. We've got a lot to get through, so I will hand straight over to Andy.
Thanks, Danielle. So just a quick recap, first of all, because over the last sort of 4, 5, 6 different webinars, we've broken down our whole system of new customer acquisition. So let's go back to the very first bit briefly, just so that we can sort of frame what we're going to cover off today in a bit more detail. So we've been through this 4-stage cycle that is our new customer acquisition framework that we call the revenue growth framework. And it starts off with an audience discovery stage, and then it moves through 3 key elements, which are build, storytell, and sell. So the classic upper, middle, and bottom funnel activity. Now, this we spent some time going through. We spent some time talking about the different elements that go into each of the stages, and we'll go into a bit more detail about this and how we set up a campaign within this framework in a second. But we also, as a recap, covered off the technique of how to acquire and stop new customers in their tracks, which is through the art of storytelling. Now, not in a Martin Scorsese way that we discussed at some length, but just using some of the techniques that are used in sort of stage and film to try and very simply and very cost efficiently stop new people in their tracks. And the reason why we do that is because right at the very start, we discussed true growth really only comes from the acquisition of new customers. So rather than trying to sell more to the same, sell more to new. So that's how we arrived at this whole webinar series, is to try and educate you guys as to how we've found some success over many, many years of doing this. So the storytelling element, we then discussed and broke it down last time, actually, just before we arrived at this webinar, into 6 key stages. So how to find profitable audience segments that forms part of your audience discovery, why you exist as a brand, and then creating a narrative around that, which allows you to then create your brand story. And then how to select one of the 27 human emotions. So not just make people cry and make people laugh, but somewhere in the middle is subtlety is really quite a clever way of doing this. So try and entertain them in some way. And the combination of your story, your unique position in the world, what you stand for, your narrative that you create off the back of that, and then creating unfolding emotion in amongst that, that's your power of stopping people in their tracks. Whether you're a multinational business, 100 million plus turnover, or whether you're a startup and you're looking to start to make your way in the world of e-commerce, it works for both. So that's where we got to. The last bit that we ran out of time, and kind of on purpose really wanted to leave it for this last webinar, is all about the deployment of this strategy. So we know what the framework looks like and why it's important. We know the technique, which is storytelling, which is how we're going to engage and stop our new customers, identify first, engage and stop our customers. But how do we actually deploy that? The idea of this series is that you have all the tools to be able to then go and say, right, let's get cracking, let's start doing this. So hopefully the next few slides will tell you how to do that. Myself and David work closely with our clients on deploying this technique. So I'll bring David in a second just to give his sort of view on things. But in order to set your campaigns up, we need to look at the channel. So, which channels are going to be most effective to deliver your story and deliver your message within the walls of the revenue growth framework? There's a few ways you can do that. One of the challenges that we face is that this type of activity is normally quite new. And so leaders in the e-commerce departments of an organization have to have almost like a test case to then go and prove to the powers that be to get further investment that this as a separate, connected of course, but a separate and new element to the e-commerce strategy might need more budget, and this is why we need it. So a lot of the time we have to start with clients on building a very simple framework before we then make it a bit more detailed, as it were. So myself and Dave were having this conversation yesterday. There's two ways that you can do this and that we have done this for clients. The first way is a very simple way where you, and if we just jump back to the framework here, where you look at a single channel, so something like Meta, for example, and you look at a very simple prospecting campaign that sits in the build stage. So this is where you create when you've created your video and your assets that are very much upper funnel storytelling techniques, put them in a campaign that is targeted purely at the build stage, and then set up a separate campaign that purely retargets those people that you've added into the build stage, and then a separate sell campaign that purely retargets people that have entered into the storytell stage. So it's a very simple funnel approach where you have a new customer acquisition prospecting campaign that sits in the build stage. And David, I'll come to you in a second about the sort of settings and things that go into that. So essentially, it's one prospecting campaign and two separate, purely 100% retargeting campaigns. And the idea then is that you are only talking to those new customers that you've added into the system. You then add a return on ad spend goal to the whole funnel, not to the build stage and not to any individual stages, but you look at those three campaigns collectively. And that's how you prove a very, very simple, very short-term test case of how you then go back to the powers that be and say, look, we've just got 2 or 3 times ROAS targeting purely new customers via our new story that we've created. Here's the evidence. Now, can we do something more advanced? David, I'll just bring you in here. Have I missed anything on that first very, very basic funnel?
No, no, absolutely not. You mentioned the different types of creative for each stage, which is a very important part, because in the build stage, you really want to talk about the customer, and send a message and see if that message, your message, the message of your company, resonates with the customer, which translates into some kind of engagement. So you filter out, the audience to know. I think you've mentioned it, and in terms of the way you implement that, yeah, you mentioned that first setup, which is, let's say, mono channel, okay, because for example, Meta will have the possibility of retargeting only Meta's user that have kind of engaged and viewed the first stage, build stage assets. And then, as we mentioned, well, several times in the past few months, now you can also do it on the omni-channel way, where, for example, let's say Meta bring a user on the website, and then you have another channel being able to retarget people that have visited the website. So this will be a kind of omni-channel where the first interaction of the build can come from one channel, and then the storytell can be transmitted through another channel, and gives a broader a machine that use all channel, which is really powerful. And then in terms of proving the revenue, so of course, if you filter out everything with the model of having retargeting campaign on one channel, um, there are pros and cons. Pros is that you won't mix at all with your business as usual traffic, so you will be able really to isolate your operation and prove the point of this brings value to the business. And the cons would be that you are not really possibly taking advantage of all of the feature of the platform. And so Meta, for example, and then more and more, I think the platform understands that. For example, Meta has a new feature that's quite recent where you can synchronize your customer base with Meta, and Meta will be able to target only people that are not into your customer base, and this can be synced quite in a real time way, so that's really powerful. And this is kind of, we're moving towards this sort of doing stuff this way, for that purpose.
Yeah, so that's the sort of single way, and then you mentioned a few of the sort of more advanced ways, but just zooming back onto that sort of single way to start with, the reason why we've picked on Meta for that is because in Google as a channel, it's a little more difficult to constrain it in a single funnel and report accordingly. So if you're looking for a test base to then look for further investment, then this single way of doing it, which is one or two, maybe purely 100% new customer prospecting ads with your new story in the build stage, and then two separate campaigns, one storytell and one sell, that only communicates to the people that we've added into the top of this funnel, is a good way of doing that. The other way
Yes.
that we can do it without going omni-channel or cross-channel, which we'll talk about in a second, is through using the technology. Now, you touched on that a bit there, David, with some of the new features. Just talk us through the second way that we do that, which is more letting Facebook work its magic using the algorithms.
Correct. So Facebook, Meta, I think it was a year and a half ago, introduced Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. And basically, as I like to recall and to remind our clients, our amazing clients, people were coming into Facebook in the beginning because it was a targeting powerhouse, meaning that, I mean, I would just take an exaggerated example, but you could target a lady between 35 and 40 that likes to watch Friends on TV and also shops at whatever. I mean, you could have something very very detailed, and people liked it because they had the impression that they could really control and be very precise in the targeting. And then AI, machine learning, evolves and became more and more sophisticated, and allowed us to do very concrete things. And now Facebook is moving has moved to a more do not specify targeting. Will find your ideal client for yourself, for you. And so this is, and they kind of force people into this slowly because they are removing targeting options. But at the same time, concretely, every day we're everything in the market, and we see that this provides a big benefit. The performance are far superior when we let the algorithm works its magic. So there is a prerequisite because we need to be sure that our data feedback solution into the machine, into the AI, is spot on. But once you have that in place, it works its magic. And so it's able to target people that are not in your customer base. It allows to find people that really resonate, engage, and it also finds strategies where it finds patterns. So let's say you put your three types of creatives in the mix: the build stage, the storytell, the sell. So just a quick recap: a build stage will be a video or an image that doesn't show your product and that doesn't talk about offer and buying. It's just, here is our mission, or you might have this need, or you might have this pain point. Let's talk about it, and then you introduce yourself as the company that can offer a solution, or that understands that problem, or that desire. And then the storytell, we slowly move into, we tell our story, but slowly introducing that we got a product or a solution for that. And then the sell is usually, I mean, it's summarized very well. It's the type of creatives where you have your product and a price, and sometimes it's carousels. And so just to go back to the main points why I was mentioning this is because now if you put all types of creative in the same mix, then the AI will have a magic of finding patterns that, oh, if I take this profile of user and show them this type of creative, or this specific creatives first, that's really does the pattern interrupt, stop people scrolling and wow, grab their attention. And then as the second interaction, I will, you know, bring this second or third creatives, and then at the end we will close the conversion at the end of the sequence with this ultimate creative. Then what my main point is that the AI knows how to take your creative, choose the one that works, and the order of the sequence to achieve the purpose.
So essentially, what we're saying is you've got two options. You've got a way to manually force the meta system to follow a certain process, or you use the algorithm and the mathematics and the advanced systems within Meta to decide what the audience signals are telling it, and then when to present the storytelling ads, when to sort of disrupt new customers, and then when to get to the point where they're ready to sell.
Absolutely.
So there's the two options to start. Where we need to get to, and David mentioned this already, is more of a cross-channel, omni-channel approach, because where did this, particularly with the sort of mono funnel or that first example, where the problem lies with that is very much surrounding you can't see the wider picture. Now, what I mean by that is that Facebook, particularly and Instagram as a collective, they are disruptors. They are introducers of new people into the mix, whereas something like Google Ads is a converter. It's much further down the funnel. So while we are putting our, in our build stage, we're putting our story out there, we're only tracking people that sit within that funnel. But actually what happens is people convert and are now aware of your brand and will go direct, or they'll go through a referral channel, or they'll go via email if they're on our email database. So we're going to lose out. We're not going to get the full picture. But nonetheless, it's a really good way to start and get a good case study. You normally get the results that you want to see anyway. And then just have this halo effect is almost like a secondary benefit. In terms of the correct approach, it's a cross-channel one. And if one of the first stages of looking at the sort of cross-channel approach is to try and connect Google Ads as a platform, and that covers, and we'll come on to this in a second, that covers the whole YouTube and display sequence and shopping sequence as well. But what you can actually do now is use GA4 as a base to build audiences up and capture that whole effect. So for example, on the upper funnel, we might, if we use the algorithm-driven approach, we might miss some of the people that don't come through our funnel. But what we can actually do with Google Analytics 4 particularly is we can say, I want you to build an audience of anybody that comes from this sequence of URLs from Meta. And it builds an audience over time of all of those people that have clicked on any of our ads and done something. We can't take account of the impression side of it or the visual aspect of the awareness we've generated, but certainly in terms of the click awareness, we can. We can do the same with any Google Ads account, whether it's on YouTube or search or shopping, whatever it may be. We can set a separate audience up that says, okay, G4, I want you to track everybody that clicks on any of our paid ads through the Google Ads platform. So essentially you've got two audiences. You've got Meta and you've got your Google Ads audience. Now, what you can then do with both those platforms is, for example, with Google Ads, you can say, right, anybody that's within the Meta audience, I want to set a separate campaign up and deliver our message further down the funnel to those people. And the same way around for Meta. So you're almost capturing much more of the halo in addition to what you get within each of those two channels. And you can start to say, right, well, we're using these channels at the right parts of the funnel. Google Ads typically, with the likes of search ads and shopping, they are people that are in market, want to buy now, but we can't, it's not as easy to move further up the funnel. We'll talk about that in a second if we've got some time. But with this omni-channel approach, you can actually almost retarget to people you've generated from a different channel. So that's where we need to get to. And how we set those up are no different that we've just discussed. It's the extra element of recording them through GA4 as separate audiences, and then adding an additional retargeting campaign to go after them cross-channel is the only addition to that. But that's where you start to get this much bigger picture and a much higher ROAS. And bear in mind, all of these strategies are focused on new customers. So all of these people that are being built in GA4 are people that are not part of your audience base. David's already mentioned that there's a new element within Meta where you can import directly from Shopify, if you've got a Shopify website, your current customer base on a regular basis. And so Facebook goes, okay, I know that's your current customer base. I'll ignore all of those people and target purely 100% new people as part of this particular campaign strategy.
It's even real time. It's even real time. You can really
in real
sync.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Like let's say at 12:10 today, you got a new customers. It's automatically, instantly imported into the audience. So I mean, it's really, really precise.
Yeah, and therefore removed from any campaign that we've got targeting new customers, of course.
Correct.
So just a bit more detail. I think we've got Danielle. Have we got about 2 minutes left, something like that? I think.
We've got 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay, cool. So in terms of diving into a bit more of the channels, okay, so we've talked about Google Ads platforms to a certain degree and Meta, but let's just look at the three: build, storytell, and sell. So what goes into the build side of it? So classically, I've already mentioned that Meta, covering Facebook and Instagram, of course, are disruptors. They are people that are not necessarily in market. They're not necessarily searching for your product like they are in the Google Ads search engine or in the search engine. They are people that might be looking at what their kids were doing in that day in the sports, or they're looking at the friends, or they're on a different, or they're on Facebook marketplaces looking to buy something, or whatever it may be. And our ad disrupts them in that process. And it disrupts them in their own home and in their own lives. They've not actively shown us that they're interested. And so this is a really good channel, Meta as a whole, for getting in front of people at the right time, and being very specific about who we're going after. TikTok is another fantastic channel to disrupt. The algorithms within TikTok are really advanced, and the ad platform is really advanced, and it allows us to target people cleverly. There's one caveat to TikTok, is that you can't have, and it's the same for any channel really, you can't have a single social strategy that covers all of your social channels. So you should have a Meta strategy, you should have a YouTube strategy, and you should have a separate TikTok strategy. TikTok is a search engine. It's less a social platform. So people don't necessarily go on there to look at, as I said, what the kids have been doing that day or what the friends are doing or anything else. They're there to be entertained. So we need to switch our brain on to let's entertain people and create specific TikTok ads that do that. So when we go back to our creating our story, we need to think a little bit about it's a different format. So the video is a portrait format rather than a square or anything else, or a landscape format. And it needs to play even more on the emotion side of it. So we need to play that entertainment card a bit more strongly than we might need to do through Meta. But nonetheless, it's a fantastic channel in the build stage. YouTube is an obvious one, part of the Google network, of course, is a visual platform that allows really tight targeting, and it's delivered through the Google Ads advertising platform. Now, I've put Google in here separate to YouTube. Obviously, the same platform, all the ads are delivered to the same place. But recently, Google's followed suit from Meta and is now allowing us to set up a Performance Max campaign that targets 100% new customers. So it's now it's trying to move itself up from a classic bottom funnel channel. I want a pair of trousers now. Then we present our ads and off we go. And it's much more moving into the awareness space, because I think it feels like that's the next logical step for it to expand into. So PMAX, now you can say purely new customers, and I want to ignore everybody else. So now that's moved into this space.
I think it's good, Andy, to remind that the Google in this specific build phase is we're not talking about the Google, the search engine, where people will put their search intent, but we're talking about all the other, because Google's a very wide network of different platform and solutions. So I think you have the display network, you have which is basically can be any website that wants to keep a space for displaying Google Ads, and so I think it's very important to understand that in this build stage, we want to target people that don't know us and kind of wave at us and say, "Hey, we're here." And so it's not people who are searching. And I think that it's just that Google logo can be sometimes ambiguous, because we don't necessarily know if it's includes the Google's as a search engine, or if it's all of the other Google media support that falls more into the pattern interrupt. People are here for another purpose, and we show them something in case it grabs their attention.
It is a good point. It's what we're suggesting here is it's image and video. are the only two assets that we'd use from Google's system in the build stage. We wouldn't use shopping, and we wouldn't use the any keywords as part of a text campaign as part of this. Yeah, absolutely. And then before we come to the measurements, lastly is something that we are pushing at the minute, which is a really good and inexpensive. I know it says Sky there, but it's a relatively inexpensive. I think the entry point is £3,000 a month, and there's no commitment beyond a month. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what the rep has told us fairly recently. So it's a relatively inexpensive way to essentially get on Sky TV. Now, what a good way to expose a new brand or an existing brand to new audiences by being able to select quite cleverly the audience, your target audience. You can, the advertising system behind Sky Smart is very advanced, and you can pretty much pinpoint who your audience are, what they like to watch, and when they're sat in front of the telly. Because every Sky box in all of our homes is essentially an ad server. So just bear that in mind, that when you get sort of Meta, TikTok, and the Google systems all up and running and delivering build stage ads, the next logical step is to do something a little bit more out there, maybe for some brands, and it's not as expensive as you think. And then lastly, how do we measure it? The way most brands make the mistake when they start to move further up the funnel is that they measure a build ad based on ROAS. It's never ever going to show you a positive ROAS. The measurement should be things like reach, impressions, click through, view through, just to measure the success at this stage of engaging, getting in front of, and stopping your new target audience. So bear that in mind. Storytell, you'll notice that some are very similar in terms of the channels. We're still talking about Meta, TikTok, YouTube, and Google, but how we use them are very different. A Storytell ad is a bit more what we call hand-holding. So the build stages, we've stopped them in the tracks. Storytell is much more about how do we hand-hold people through. David, do you want to just give us a quick idea of the type of ad formats that work really well, particularly on Meta, I think, maybe in this Storytell section?
Yeah, videos, but videos that so videos are a bit superior to grab attention, but you really want them very very short, and your main point. I mean, in the first 3 seconds, you needed to have a very strong attention grabbing image or sequence or movement that's also aligned with your company, your identity, your visual identity, and the message. And then your main point, your main big benefit, consumer benefit, needs to be shown right away. So it's going to be short videos, but this is usually what's going to be the best. The best assets to tell the story. Of course, you could also A/B test, because I'm always in favor of not, putting all our weapons in or all our expectation in only one creative. So try to test several things. It could be also a strong image that would kind of summarize everything I said before with a strong message overlaid on it. And I reinforce that overlay one very short but very strong key point on the creative itself. Do not really rely on the text above and below on Meta, of the advertising, because we believe people hardly read them.
And also, you're a fan of collection ads on for Storytell section, aren't you?
Yeah, collection ad is very very cool. Sometimes in the Storytell section, we're like, okay, we can't really push a product because maybe when the prospect is not nurtured enough and ready. But at the same time, um, some of them can be, and so collection ads is a very cool tool now to do both. Collection ad basically is either a video or an image with, and you might have seen them because they're becoming quite popular now, with three little thumbnails of products that are algorithmically chosen to perform. And so you get the best of both worlds, really, because you can storytell, and then right below your storytelling part, which is either a video or an image, you would have those three little thumbnails. So that's slowly and very delicately translates into, we got a product for you, we got an offer for you, buy from us.
Yeah, it's really useful, isn't it, the collection ads? And then in terms of the measurement, so we're moving more towards what you typically your typical success metrics that most brands use. So click-through rate, engagement, view-through. We might start to look, although not base our optimization on sales and revenue at this stage as well, and ROAS. We might start to think about that at this stage, but it's really not until the sell stage is it that we really want to look at AOVs, LTVs, conversion rates, and all those bits and pieces. So sell is what most people are doing. So we won't spend any time talking about this. This is your Google Shopping, your text ads. TikTok and Meta play an important part on this as well. And Danielle's popped up, so that means we're out of time. So just the last quick one. So how do we measure all of this? So I've given you 2 or 3 options: the sort of mono channel and the sort of different way of doing that, 2 different ways of doing that, and then the omni-channel approach, which is in the slides earlier. The most efficient way of doing it is using some kind of attribution reporting tool. We've used both of these, Northbeam and Triple Whale. We're Northbeam partners. They are going to give you the most impartial cross-channel, cross-multi-channel view on what your upper, middle, and bottom funnel ads are doing to the wider ecosystem of your e-commerce business. You can't allow Google Analytics to do that. It will give you inaccurate information, and in-channel analytics are not good enough, not strong enough to give you the full picture. So you have to look at something like this if you really want to get serious about it. Back to you, Danielle.
Thanks, guys. So yeah, we've run a minute over, but hopefully we won't keep you for too much longer. Again, any questions that you have following this, let us know. Our LinkedIn inbox is now up and running, so you can directly message everyone here at Revenue Growth Agency. So follow our business page, drop us a message if you have any questions. Alternatively, go directly to Andy or David, or drop us an email at info@revenuegrowth.agency, and we'll come back to you with a little bit more information. I'll be following up with everyone else this afternoon. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.